All right, so Chapter 1, Section 2 of Math 1300 involves basic math operations and then also a little bit of variable substitutions into equations. But we're going to just begin with the basic math operations. I'll show you these two problems, restate the rule, and then we'll move on to a couple of variable substitution problems and show you how those are done. This will be a very short discussion. This is stuff that you are probably very familiar with if you took high school algebra. So anyway, you're familiar with the little phrase that helps us remember order of operations within math. Now, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, where please, the P in please stands for the parentheses, E stands for exponents, M stands for multiply, divide, add, and subtract, all of them moving from left to right the way we normally read in the English language. And so I give you an example here of 7 plus 8 times 3, all within a parentheses, plus 3 squared plus 4 in a parentheses divided by 13. So the way this would work is we start within the parentheses, and then inside the parentheses we follow the rest of the order. In this case, we wouldn't add 7 and 8 first, even though that is left to right, because multiply and divide, those happen before you add and subtract. So in this case, we do 8 times 3, 24 plus 7. And then here again, we have an exponent that precedes even multiplying and dividing and adding and subtracting. So we'd have 9 plus 4 divided by 13. And then 7 plus 24, that's 31. We work inside the parentheses. Plus 9 plus 4 is 13 divided by 13. Well, now we have a sentence, 31 plus 13 divided by 13. But we want to do this in order. We do work left to right, but we must follow the rule of multiply or divide before we add and subtract. So in that case, this whole sentence is going to equal, we're going to divide 13 by 13 first, which is 1, and then add 31. So we'll have 31 plus 1, and that equals 32. So that long sentence there ultimately becomes the number 32. Now, this sentence is simpler. I just want to emphasize that you have to be careful with minus signs. So here we have a large paren, we have a smaller paren, and we have a multiplication outside of the bigger paren. So we have minus a minus 3. So we start here in this paren inside the bigger parentheses. So please, excuse my dear Aunt Sally, we start with please. Minus a minus 3 is a positive 3. Minus 4. Now we have this larger paren still to deal with in the number 7, multiplied by 7. So again, we start with the parentheses before we do the multiply. Parentheses first, then multiply. Now inside the parentheses, we have plus 3 minus 4. A positive 3 minus 4 is minus 1. So it gives us minus 1, all of that times 7. And minus 1 times 7, now we're down to just one operation here. Minus 1 times 7 is minus 7. And that's how that particular mathematical sentence is done. Start at the parens, inside the parentheses we have a minus, and then we do the work inside the parentheses, and then we work from the parentheses out, moving from the inside out, moving from the inside material of the parentheses to outside of it. We have a layered parentheses in this case, a smaller paren and a larger parentheses, and we move from the inside out. So please excuse my dear Aunt Sally moving left to right. And there's several practice problems like that. I recommend you do as many of them as you can because it doesn't take very long to do them, and you'll practice these order of operations within mathematics. And this becomes very important later because even though this is numbers and not variables, the same rule applies to variables. And so you've got to get the order of operations down, whether you're dealing with an actual whole number or integer or natural number, whatever you want to call it, or whether you're dealing with a variable representing that number, real or rational or whatever the number is. You may have a variable. And so on that representation, let me show you an example here then, following this same set of rules. Let's suppose instead we have a problem that looks like this. X plus 2y divided by 3. Okay, so there's our problem. And we need some information for x and y. We're told that x is equal to 6 and that y is equal to 3. So now we have x equals 6, y equals 3. We're going to substitute those in. We're going to substitute that information into this mathematical sentence. And so we have the number 6 plus 2 times y, which is 2 times 3. You can maybe put a dot between them, however you wish to identify multiplication. All that divided by 3. So now we're back to my dear Aunt Sally. Multiply first, then add. So 2 times 3 is 6, plus 6 is 12. Divided by 3, and that all equals 4. And so there's a simple example of how this same rule applies when you have variables involved, and how to substitute numbers that are provided in a problem into those variables, and then to solve using these variable substitutions in this equation. And obviously, if you gave different numbers for substitution, you would get a different answer. If x equaled 3 and y equaled 6, you would get a different answer. Then 4, you would get a different answer because x would become 3, y would become 6. You get 2 times 6 is 12, plus 3 is 15 divided by 3. You get 5 in that case. And so the variables, the same set of variables, but with different substitutions in for them, will result in different solution. So this is the order of operations, very important within the world of algebra, and it will show up over and over and over throughout the semester. So anyway, these are some basic concepts dealing with Chapter 1, Section 2.